Today I'm going to show you how to make this little bracelet that I am calling Lotus Passion. It was a name that was derived from two people's suggestions. We just took half of each suggestion and put it together. So thank you ladies for the help for the name. However, with this bracelet I'm going to make a few changes today. These little black diamond crystals that I used in this one were labeled 4mm. However, in trying to use different colors of 4mm crystals and beads and such to do this bracelet again, I have found that these little crystals aren't actually 4mm. They're like 3, maybe a little over 3, but they're not 4mm. So I ran into a few design issues. So I'm going to change it up a little bit than this in my design today. Instead of, I had used 11 O's, super duos, and 4mm rounds. I used 2 colors of 11 O's of super duos in here. I used black diamond and Lila Luster. I have decided to use all one color super duo today, and I'm also not using 11O in the center. I am using an 8O in the center to kind of remedy the situation of these little beads being smaller than they were labeled. So what we're going to need today, let me show you. With my beads, what I'm going to use today to make this bracelet. And I'm also going to change up the clasping. I used a slip lock clasp on this one. I think I'm going to try to use a button on this one today. You can use any kind of clasp you want, but I think I'm going to try to change that because, as you can see, I'm using gold and all I have are silver slip locks, and I just feel that I need a gold clasp on this one. So I am going to try something different. So let's see what we need here. You will need 4mm round beads. I'm using an Austrian crystal. You can use pearls, fire polish, druck, whatever you'd like, as long as it's 4mm round. And then you need super duos. And I am using a Capri Gold. What is it? Let's see. This is Ruby Capri Gold Super Duo. Then I'm using Toho seed beads. I'm using an 11O and an 8O. You won't need a lot of 8Os, but you will need some. And then I'm going to use this little Shank Button for my clasp. You will need 8-pound Fireline or 6-pound. And you will need 2 wingspans of that to start with, and a beading needle. I'm using a size 10 English beading needle. Now, to start this project, let's readjust here. To start this project, you will pick up on your needle an 8O, super duo, 4mm round, a super duo, an 8O, a super duo, a 4mm round, and a super duo. This is what you will have, on your needle. So you start with 8O, super duo, round, super duo, 8O, super duo, round, super duo. Bring them down to the end of your thread. You don't have to leave a long tail, but enough to kind of hold on to. Then you're going to sew back up through all of these beads. Don't tie these beads into a knot because the knot gets in the way when we're trying to put on our clasp and sew through the top units to get to the other side for our embellishments. So just go through them again like this and kind of pull it into a loop. And then in the same direction, go back through the 11O or the 8O and the first super duo that you put on your thread. Pull your thread through and then pull your tail and your working thread tight. This is what you should have. Now we're going to sew back through all of these beads to secure them since we're not tying a knot. So let's just sew back through all of them again. When you get to where your tail is, just keep going around. And sew all the way until you get to the opposite 8/0 seed bead from the one that your tail is coming out of. Right here. And tighten everything up, make sure it's nice and firm. And that is what it should look like. And now we are going to put our next unit on here. This is our first unit. So we will pick up a super duo, a 4mm round, a super duo, an 8/0 seed bead, a super duo, a round, and a super duo. This is what you'll have. Super duo, round, super duo, 8/0, super duo, round, super duo. You're coming out of this side of the 8/0 seed bead. You're going to go into the opposite side of the 8/0 seed bead. Bring your beads up tight next to it. And then you're going to sew through this bead, and this bead to get to this bead here to tighten this unit because it's just kind of laying there. So just lay it on your fingers and sew up through these 3 beads here. Pull your thread through and then sew through the 8/0 seed bead. Give it a nice little tug. Keep this nice and firm. Then your next unit will be a super duo, a 4mm round, a super duo, an 8/0, a super duo, a 4mm round, and a super duo. Just like this. Coming out of this side of the 11/0 or of the 8/0 seed bead, we're going to go into the opposite side of the 8/0 seed bead and pull our beads down into a circle. Just like that. Now on this side, it's easier if you turn your little piece around because when you're coming out that direction, it's hard to sew back up. We're coming out of the bead this direction. Let's sew back up these 3. Just like this. Give it a nice tug and then go through the 8/0 seed bead. And that's what that should look like. And we're going to continue making these units until we have about 17 of them. Now, the bracelet that I am going to make will be about 7.5 inches. So if you want a smaller bracelet, you will make less units. I'm going to make 17. You could make 16, 15, 14, whatever size you'd like to make it fit your wrist. Now, you can also just sew until you get enough to where they just come about that far apart on your wrist. Not quite a half an inch, 1/4 of an inch maybe. And then you'll have the length that you need. And keep sewing these units until you get to that point. And we'll see you back. I'm going to make 17. Okay, so I have made my 17 units. And I am coming out of the super duo, or actually the 8/0 seed bead right here on this side. Now, I need to get over to this bead over here so that I can go through the top hole and sew down and start adding my next row of super duos. But in order to do that, I'm going to need to sew around my units. So I'm coming out of the 8/0 here. Oops, let's get you real close. Coming out of the 8/0 here, I'm going to go into the super duo, down into the 4mm round and the super duo underneath it. Probably not that super duo too. and then into the 8/0 seed bead right here. We're just sewing around the first unit is what we're doing. Then we're going to go up this super duo and this 4mm round and this super duo. Okay. So I lied. I don't need to get to this one. I need to get to the top of this one. Excuse me. So we just sewn from here around our unit and come out here. And then we're going to go into the top hole of the super duo right here. And then we're going to begin picking up 3 super duos. Pick up 3, you're coming here, you're going to go into this one, the last super duo on your unit, and the first super duo of the next unit. And pull your thread through. And again, pick up 3 super duos. You're coming out of this first one in your second unit. You're going to go into this one and the first one of your next unit. Just like this. And pull. And one more time. We'll pick up 3 super duos. Let's get a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. We're coming out of this super duo. We're going to go into both of these in the top hole. And tangle our thread. And there we go. And you're going to do that the entire length of the bracelet, and we'll be back. Alright, so I have put my 3 little super duos in between the units of my base of my bracelet, my base units. So now I'm coming out right here on this super duo. I'm coming out of the top one right here. So we need to get around to this super duo so that we can start this side. So we are going to go into this hole. We're in this hole of the super duo. We're going to go into this hole and the 4mm round bead underneath it. These can be a little awkward to get through because they're at funny angles, so just take your units one at a time if you have to. Go into the next super duo right here. Underneath the 4mm round you just went through, pull through, go through the 8/0 in the center here, right there, and then let's turn our work a little bit, come up through this super duo and the 4mm round. If you can get through the top super duo, that's great too, just like that. And pull it up through and turn my work again. Now I'm going to go through the top hole of this super duo that I'm coming out of, and I'm going to begin doing exactly the same thing I did on the other side. I'm just going to pick up 3 of my super duos, and I'm going to go from this super duo into both of these super duos, just like this, and pull. And we're going to do that all the way down the entire length, just like we did on the other side. Okay, so I finished putting my 3 seed bead, or my 3 super duos in between the 2 super duos of the first units. And now we are coming out of this little super duo right here on top. Let's get close. Right here. We need to work up into these beads, so we're going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, and we're just going to go into this top bead. Now these beads are loose because you just came out of them, so just hold on to them with your fingers and pull your 11/0 up tight like that, and that'll pull this bead out a little bit, and that's okay. Now we are going to pick up a super duo and we're going to go into the next super duo. Now this is going to pull all loose, like I said, because of the fact that that was the last unit we just did. So just kind of manipulate it around, make it work. And then put your next super duo in. We went from here to here with a super duo in between. Now we're going to go into the next one and put a super duo in between. And then we're just going to sew into the next unit. The very first super duo, we're just going to sew into it. Just like that. Then we're going to pick up a super duo and go into the next super duo. And again, pick up a super duo, sew into the next super duo, and sew into the next super duo, the first one of the next unit. Just like you were doing before. And you're going to do this the entire length of the bracelet. Go into the next super duo with a super duo, pick up a super duo, go into the next super duo, and into the first super duo of the next unit. Just like that. Go a little closer and we'll do it one more time, and then we'll just go and do the entire length here. So pick up a super duo, go into the next super duo, pick up a super duo, go into the next super duo, and the first super duo of the next unit. Just like that. And continue that the entire length of the bracelet. So I have finished my entire side, putting my two little super duos on. And so now I need to work over to the other side so that I can do the same thing. I'm coming out of this very last super duo here. Let's get a little closer. Coming out of the top hole here. I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead. And then I'm going to go down into the next 11/0, or sorry, super duo, this hole right here. Let's get even a little closer here. And pull my thread through. And then I'm going to sew up through the next hole of the super duo that I'm coming out of. I'm just going to travel up right between the 4mm round and the super duo. I'm just going to come up between there. It's a really funny angle, so it takes a little bit of wiggling. And pull my thread through. Then we're going to go through the 8/0 here. We're going to go down into the super duo, right next to the 8/0, right here. And we're going to come up through the second hole in the super duo that you're in right now. So just come up through between the two super duos here, come up through it, just like this. We're going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, and we're going to go into the top hole of the super duo on the edge here, right there. Now, we're going to do the same thing we did on the other side, adding super duos here, here, sewing these two together, and a super duo here and here. So let's pick up a super duo, and we'll travel into the next super duo. Tighten it up and pop it in there. pick up another, go into the next super duo, and then pick up the next super duo in the next unit, and pull. Just like that. Just like you did on the other side. Do the entire length of the bracelet, and we'll be back. So I have finished putting my two little super duos all the way the length of the bracelet, and now I'm coming out of this top super duo right here. I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, and then I'm coming out of this hole here in this super duo right here. I'm going to go into this hole of this super duo right here, and the hole of the super duo I'm coming out of, just like this. So I'm going to go into both super duos right there, and I'm going to pull my 11-0 seed bead down. I want it to go right between those two beads there, just like that. And then I am just going to climb back up into this super duo here. The one that I am coming out of, I'm going to go into the top hole, just like this. And pull everything back into place if it pulls, just like that. And we're going to go through this 11-0 seed bead, and we're going to pick up an 8-0 and a crystal and an 8-0, and then we're going to pick up our button. Just like that. Then we're going to pick up an 8-0, a crystal, and an 8-0. And we're going to go into the 11-0 seed bead on the other side here. And pull it down. That'll pull your little button tight. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sew into, we're going to take a little half hitch knot right here. If you can hold this tight, it's got to stay tight, so just hold your button like this, and then go through this super duo here, in between these two super duos we're going to tie a little knot just to hold everything steady for us. Then we're going to sew back up through the super duo and into the beads that we just added for our clasp. We're going to sew all the way up around all of them, through the clasp, through all the beads, and you can move the button around so that you can get to your beads. It's a really fat button. I guess I'm just going to have to, there we go. So like that. And then down into the super duo underneath the beads that you just came out of. And again, tie a little half hitch knot right here between these beads. And then go back up through the super duo again. And all of your beads in your clasping. Just like this. Don't miss any of your beads as you sew back through. Oops, let me get back in frame here. It's kind of hard to sew around the button, but it can be done. If you have to take one at a time, take one at a time. It doesn't really matter. Then go back into this little 11-0 here on the corner and back through the super duo on the corner here. Right here, we're going to go into this little super duo again. I'm coming out of this 11-0. I'm going to come into this super duo. Just the one hole. It's up on the angle. So just pull through there. And now we're going to pick up, we're coming out of this little corner one, we're going to pick up 3 11-0 seed beads. And back off just a little bit. And since we're coming out of the corner of this little super duo, we're going to go into the top of this super duo here. I'm going to turn my work over now. Now you'll see that I've just created a little picot right on that corner there underneath my button. And that has also brought me up to the top of my piece here, and I can do my last row of embellishment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, and I'm going to go from super duo to super duo, and I'm going to place an 11-0, and then I'm going to pull the super duos closed. There's quite an opening there, and 11-0 is small, so make sure you pull them closed just like that, and then pick up a 4mm round and go from super duo to super duo. And pull. And then pick up an 11-0 seed bead. Go from super duo to super duo and pull the super duos closed around the seed bead. And pick up a 4mm round and go into the next super duo. Pick up an 11-0 seed bead and go into the next super duo. And pull it closed. Do that the entire length of the bracelet and we'll be back. Okay, so I have finished the embellishment on this side completely. I am now coming out of this super duo here after putting my little 11-0 seed bead in. And now we're going to do this side of our clasping. So first we need to pick up 3 11-0 seed beads. And we need to go from this hole that we're coming out of up and under this little seed bead, or this super duo right here. So let's get you a little closer. So we're going to go into the hole right underneath this 11-0 here. You can go through the 11-0 too, that's fine. We're going to design this so we don't have to go through all the rigmarole of sewing through these beads as we did on the other side, because that was kind of a pain in the rear end. So we are now going to pick up 3 11-0 seed beads. We're coming out of this little 11-0 right here. We're going to go into the 8-0 in the middle and pull those little 11-0s down. Pick up 3 more 11-0s and go into this 11-0 on the corner. And now we're going to pick up a series of 11 O's, or perhaps we'll use 11 O's to go around our clasp. So just pick up, it depends on the size of your button, you'll pick up a whole bunch of seed beads onto your needle until it'll fit around your button. So my button is pretty darn large, so I'm going to have to pick up quite a few seed beads. And the number isn't going to be exact, so for everybody, because of the fact that everyone's button is going to be different. But we also have to take into consideration that this entire portion here is going to fit around our button too. So let's see. If we go back a few more here. We don't want this to be too wide because we want this to hold this up against our wrist pretty well. So now I'm going to go back into the other side here. This little 11 seed bead that I started in, and I'm just going to travel through all of my seed beads again. First I want to check and make sure that my bead or my button is going to go through this. So I'm just going to hold my thread tight. And let's see, did I loosen that up? I think my button is going to go through there just fine. So I'm going to continue sewing through all of these beads here on the bottom that we added in our previous step. And then I'm going to sew up around all of the beads I just put on for my little loop. And I'm going to do that about 3 or 4 times to sew through all of these beads, just to reinforce that and make it strong, because this is going to get tugged on a lot. Okay, so I've reinforced my little loop here, and I'm coming out of the 11 on the bottom here, right here, the one before we go up into the loop, and right before the hole in the super duo beneath it. And we're going to go down into just that super duo in the hole there and pull our thread through. We're going to pick up 3 11 seed beads, and we're going to make our little picot in the corner and position ourselves to do our last row of embellishment. So now we're coming out of the bottom of this super duo. We're going to go into the top or the bottom of the hole of the super duo here. We're going to go into the top hole of this super duo here, make our little picot. And we're going to go between the super duos here and put our little 11 between them and pull them tight. And then we will pick up a 4mm round bead, and we'll go into the next super duo and place this bead between the super duos. And again, pick up an 11 and go into the next super duo, pull them together around the 11 and do this entire, we will do this entire side of the bracelet this way. Okay, so I have finished my entire row of embellishment here, and now I am coming out of the super duo where I put my last little 11 I'm going to pick up 3 11 because I need to make my picot on the corner here to match my other corners. So I am going to go from this bead right here into this bead underneath it, the bead that the clasp is, stuff is coming out of. So just go like this and come through. And now we are finished we just have to tie off. So it would be easiest probably to sew up around your clasp and then sew back down into your work. Okay, so I've sewn back through down into my work and tied a few half-hitch knots and then completely cut my thread off, and this is what it looks like. This clasping does work okay, so unless you want to use the slide lock clasp like on this one, you can do that too, and that's fine. I just sewed through my little 11 O's on top that we sewed through for this one and just put on my slip lock clasp on this one. So you can do that also. It's really not too difficult. This is what it looks like completely finished. Now, being all one color, it doesn't show the pattern quite as pretty as if it were two colors. I started one for two colors, and that was the one that I figured out that the beads were a bigger size and it wasn't working out well. And it actually, the crystal actually cut my thread. So I didn't get to finish this one, but this is what it looks like if you use a couple of different colors. And in this one, when I did my first embellishment, my first adding of 3 seed beads, I did one of my main color, one of the second color, and one of the main color, and all the way through. And then I did my second color all the way on the next row. And then I put my 11-0 and my crystal through this row. So it's exactly the same thread path, exactly the same pattern. It's just a change of color. So this is also something you can do so that you can get a little bit of a different pattern in it. And then here is the original one I did. And this one has all one color through here, but a different color up on top. So anyway, that's what you can do with this bracelet. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.